Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 737 for the 1st of March. And we're going to start off with the Frontline changes report, and there is some significant change, change over at the Bakhmut Front, over at Ivanivkse. So over at Ivanivkse, the Ukrainian mapping have been updated, and this time around they have acknowledged or somewhat semi-corroborated the changes or the updates from the Russian side. So Ivanivkse, the Ukrainian side updates like a few days slower than the Russian side, and the information suggests that the Russian forces confirmed to have captured the entire eastern part of Ivanivkse. In fact, also the entire southeastern part of Ivanivkse, and this actually corroborates the previous report that I told you guys about. There's a high chance that the Russian forces will progress from the southern flank and to flank the Ukrainian forces from the south. However, the Ukrainian mapping do not acknowledge the Russian claims of the capture of this northern part of Ivanivkse. This one is only exists in the Russian mapping, or in terms of the Ukrainian mapping, they do not acknowledge this change. So Ukrainian mapping so far, if you look at it, it's going to look like this. This is the Ukrainian mapping. It looks something like this. So this is the line here. This is where the front line is. It's a bit different from the Russians, where the Russians actually lines up here. So only the southern part is the same. So that's all from this one. We'll talk more in the SITREP. And the other frontline change is over at the Heorhiivka. So the Ukrainian mapping have updated and conceded. Finally, this part of the settlement has been fallen to the Russian forces. With the Russian forces continue to progress in this direction, the Russian claimed this area pretty long ago. However, it's only until now that the Ukrainians have acknowledged this change. However, the battle continues to be a hard fight, so there's no other changes in terms of the Heorhiivka. And further south from Heorhiivka is Novomykhailivka. Ukrainian mapping also have acknowledged the Russian capture of this farm or warehouse or something over here, acknowledging that the Russian forces have changed the front line to this, which means that the Russians are progressing from the south, closing back up the front line and actually corroborating with the Russian claims. This actually is prompted due to geolocation of Russian forces at the northern edge of this industrial area, and they actually show their flag over this area, confirming their control over the southern part of Novomykhailivka. So the Ukrainians have no choice but to update their mapping into to reflect this new reality. But as such, Deep State UA is still the most reliable mapping out there. Even if they are slow, they are very seldom wrong. They are usually always right. So just that they are slow. So over at Tabaivka, over at the Kupyansk Front, there is Ukraine claims that the Ukrainian forces have actually progressed in this area here and captured this northeastern part of Tabaivka. So this actually negated the Russian claims of capture from the 27 to 29 because now the Ukrainians basically have taken back part of this non-existing settlement. So this settlement is not even a settlement, it's just the name of this place because there's hardly any buildings around here. So this is basically just a battle of some grounds with a name. So that's all from the Tabaivka region. And there's one last frontline change is over at Urozhaine. So over at the Velikan Novosselka sector of the Donetsk Front. And on the eastern part of Urozhaine, this is Urozhaine, and the eastern part, this tree line around here, this tree line is previously geolocated or confirmed to be under Russian control. This time around, there's a massive airstrike hitting this location, confirming Ukrainian positions at this edge of this tree line. And this airstrike basically shows that the Ukrainians during some time ago or recently have taken this position. They have attacked and captured this position and managed to send land troops and actually station and entrench themselves over at this position. And it attracted an airstrike. This also makes it is a reminder that the Russian forces may have all this front line, but they may not put troops to hold these lines. So this is something important to note. They operate on a different doctrine from the Ukrainians. For the Ukrainians, they will constantly put troops to entrench themselves, but the Russians will not necessarily entrench themselves. I'm not sure if I'm too loud. Yeah, I'm looking at the meter. It seems that I'm quite loud. So anyway, yeah, I can't adjust it right now. As in, like, I don't know if what are you hearing. So I'm gonna adjust over after recording. So sorry if it's a bit too loud. And that's all from the Frontline Changes report. And going to the strategic and tactical reporting, again, the Ukrainians have claimed another Sukhoi 34 that was shot down, this time around over eastern Ukraine. And this Sukhoi 34 was shot down, and they actually have some kind of a video footage or GIF showing something burning on the ground somewhere, somehow. I shared it on DPA Telegram channel. You may want to check it out over there. And I want to move the mic a bit further because the meter looks really loud. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you check it out on the DPA Telegram. Join the Telegram group. I also created a DPA WhatsApp group, so you may want to check it out. I will be posting more or less the same thing, so you can choose either one or both. Up to you. I personally don't use the WhatsApp channel that much. I just created it for you guys who actually prefers WhatsApp. So anyway, moving on to the Southern Front and also at the Kherson Front, based on Russian information, Ukrainian forces are still at Krinky holes. So so that is not disputed right now. It's confirmed they are there. So anyone that said that Krinky was captured, anyway, the on the opposite side, Ivanivkse got shelled by the Russian forces. This according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Over at Ingulets. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. Over at Ingulets, the Russians fired a barrage of Urozhaine multiple launch rocket systems, and they basically hammered the entire settlement because they detected Ukrainian forces unloading and loading probably ammunition around this area here. So they just bombard almost the entire village randomly because it is a multiple launch rocket system, so it's always going to be random. So, and that's all from the Kherson Front. We move on to the Zaporizhzhia Front. So this is the Zaporizhzhia city, and this is Zaporizhzhia Front. At the Zaporizhzhia Front, the action is only over at the Heorhiivka sector, with the Russian forces continue their actions around here. The Russians are reportedly fighting or conducting operations. Okay, I need to zoom out a bit. There's fire missions on the Malatomashka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So I just want to highlight this first so that I can zoom in a bit. And over at the Robotini-Verbovets region, the Ukrainian Heorhiivka salient, the Russian forces are attacking over on the eastern part of western part of Robotini. Fighting was reported at Robotini itself in the area of Novoprokopivka, as well as Verbovet. So let me double check the information. Did I see wrong? Novoprokopivka, correct. So this is not very big assault. This is just a fighting being mentioned by Ryba and by the Russian Defense Ministry, and this is very unusual, especially the naming of Novoprokopivka, because this settlement is actually away from the front line, or at least the claimed front line. So fighting being mentioned around this area suggests that the Russians may have lost Robotini again. There's a possibility, or maybe they did not entrench within it. So the Ukrainians have taken it, causing the fighting to be in the southern part of Robotini, thus fighting in the area of Novoprokopivka. So that's all for the Heorhiivka sector. And we move on from the Zaporizhzhia Front to the Donetsk Front. So this is Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, there is fighting reported across the entire front line, with fighting reported at Staromayoske, Novodonetsk, south of Zolotaneva, Voleda, Novomykhailivka, north of Novomykhailivka, Boyeda, Ukrainians counterattack at Boyeda, Georgiivka and Krasnohorivka. Of note, the one at Voleda, as well as Staromayorsky, and I think Novodonetsk. These are all fire missions. These are not active assault, and so this, and then north of Zolotaneva there was a Lancet strike being recorded to have attacked a Ukrainian tank north of Zolotaneva. So not very important in that sense. So these are just fire missions, so nothing to really worry about. Over at this Marinka sector, the Russian forces have taken the southern part, which shows that there is still active assault with showing of the flag in this area here. And I find this video footage come very belated because this line is already claimed by the Russian side for a long time. So for it to be only re-established right now, yeah, feels a little bit sus. And over on the northern part, there was a Lancet attack on Ukrainian forces, confirming Ukrainian presence still in this area here. Essentially, the front line did not change. So in that sense, so we shall continue to monitor. I don't really like this situation where the Russian claims precedes evidence by so much. So it might be like a preemptive declaration of capture rather than actual capture. So this is not good. And so the Russians are also trying to attack from the north, but according to the information from the Russian side, it has not been successful. So this is the situation at Novomykhailivka. We further up north, at the Boyeda region, the Russian forces are still trying to push out, but it doesn't seem very successful. Ukrainian forces counterattack and is in the southern outskirts of Boyeda again. So we will continue to monitor and see how this progress. So all these mention about captures are quite sad. If they declared victory and then after that the Ukrainians recapture, then it's kind of a embarrassment. Further up north, Georgiivka, the Ukrainians basically, based on the frontline change report, has acknowledged the Russian presence in this area here, in the southern part of Georgiivka, but that's about it. That is already claimed by the Russian side for some time, so we'll continue to monitor. The fighting at Krasnohorivka continues to be unknown. It's still pretty much in the fog of war. We do not know what is currently happening right there, despite the reports fighting at Krasnohorivka continues all the way non-stop from both sides. They are reporting this from the 27th of February, where the first sudden attack broke through. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this progress. We move on to the Avdiivka Front. So this is Avdiivka Front. At the Avdiivka Front, Russian forces continue their Avdiivka offensive, but the Ukrainians have launched massive counterattack across the entire front line. So Ukrainian forces attacking at Novobakhmutivka towards Stepove, at Badaichi, Semenivka, Olivka, Tonenke, at Vodian, as well as Pervomaisky. Russian forces attack at Badaichi towards Semenivka, at Olivka, at Tonenke, at Pervomaisky and Nevelsky. So if you look at this arrow system, you can see that there is a massive battle going on, and the Ukrainian forces seems to have successfully reinforced themselves. Like I mentioned, they need to hold the line. If not, it's going to get harder and harder for them because there is lesser entrenchment. So Ukrainian forces have basically reinforced greatly in this area here and managed to launch counterattack with armored vehicles, and there is artillery being deployed in the Novoselivka, Persia and Novoprovsky line. And there is also geolocation confirming there was one hot whistle of the Ukrainians getting destroyed, a gun, artillery gun. So confirming that the Ukrainians did indeed deploy artillery line around here to support their operations in this area here. Russian forces are not giving up yet, but there was a pretty disturbing footage coming out from the Russian side at Badaichi. This footage show a Russian attack. A mechanized vehicle basically dropped infantry into Badaichi, and then it left. But then it did not go far, and then it got destroyed. There's a dead soldier on the APC on this APC itself, and And then after that, Bradley comes into the scene and wiped out the entire infantry squad that was entrenching themselves along the tree line. Basically, it's a turkey shoot because all these infantry do not actually have the appropriate anti-tank equipment to take out armored vehicles. So it's basically a tragedy. It's very hard to imagine, until this age we still, and this time of the conflict, that there is still commanders waiting to send troops out without fire support. Especially with the Russians having equipment superiority, this is unimaginable. But knowing Russia, the commanders will not get punished. That's what it is. And another image or video footage shows a lot of dead Russian soldiers. This time around, this is on the eastern part of Zaporizhzhia. They are all lying down next to a tank. And it's unclear what is the story behind it. Are they, clustering there and then got killed by some kind of maybe a HIMARS strike, a cluster munition strike, or could they be just, dead soldiers being, unloaded at that spot to be transported further away from the front line later? Is unclear. We do not know what is the circumstances. It is possible that these are just collected dead soldiers from the front because of the lack of equipment from this image. Because it's a bit hard to tell if they are holding any rifles, and there's no such thing as a soldier without rifle so close to the front line. Basically, even their commanders carry rifles. So, we shall continue to monitor and see what this progress. Also, there is FPV drone attacks being reported on the eastern part of Avdiivka, showing the Russian forces indeed is in this area here. They are trying to take this position. The Russian forces are not progressing towards Semenivka just yet, as they are raining fire. As this area the Ukrainians seems to have very strong lines around here, the Russian forces cannot push through, so they are landing fire on the Ukrainian forces at Semenivka and trying to push through Badaichi, which was eliminated. So the situation here proved that the Russian claims of capture is entirely premature, and it basically invalidates them and their claim, which means that the Russian sources that is giving information to Ryba, that source that gave information to Ryba is jumping ahead. They are basically, claiming before they actually really capture the ground. So that's why we need to cover information from both sides, which is why, as I mentioned, the next day after the mention of the capture, I already informed you guys that Deep State U8 entirely rejected the concept that the three towns are captured. So this is very good. So this is continuing what we have always followed. So we are never duped in that way. So as I did mention, during those days, these are only claimed by the Russian side. It was not acknowledged by the Ukrainian side just yet. And because of this, situation that's unfolding, and clearly shows that the Russians have no firm control over the three settlements. This icon has turned into question mark because this original claim of capture 3 days ago is now invalidated for now. And what else can I talk about over here? I believe that's all for this area here in the Avdiivka Front. And we move on away from the Avdiivka Front. At the Niu-York Front, the Russian forces reported Ukrainian attack at Bivdeni. So this is just a one-off thing, nothing really to talk about. Moving into the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, in the southern flank of the Bakhmut Front, the Russian forces continue to attack Klishchiivka, Avdiivka, and Kurdyumivka. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces over in the southeastern part of Klishchiivka clearly shows the front line did not change a single bit. So all this attack is very positional in nature. That means they are just launching long-range strikes, artillery strikes. It's not exactly any kind of assault. The Russians don't seem to want to push through, and honestly, there is no need to. It really depends on what's your objective. Is your objective is like what the Russians say, demilitarization, which means destroying the enemy's military, then there's no need to capture ground. Capture ground can come later after you destroy the military. The Ukrainians have a totally different objective. Their aim is actually to hold ground. So they will defend all the grounds as much as they can. In the northern flank, Russian forces reported to be attacking Bodanivka and Ivanivkse. And Bodanivka is a bit funny. Raiba reported there are claims that Bodanivka has been captured. I'm quite 100% sure it's going to be fake news because, yeah, if they even the more confirmed news end up to be invalidated, then Bodanivka, definitely this rumor is nonsense. Over at the Ivanivkse region, as per mentioned in the Frontline Changes report, Ukrainian mapping confirmed the Russians have basically taken the entire eastern part and southeastern part of Ivanivkse with this massive push, taking confirmed, at least officially right now, from two mappings, from both the Russian and the Ukrainian mapping, confirming Russians have captured half of Ivanivkse. The northern part is not acknowledged by the Ukrainian side. This is only acknowledged by the Russian side about the Russians' attack in this north or capturing the parts of this northern part of Ivanivkse. We'll continue to monitor what's the situation over this area here, and pretty close they are going to reach the center of the governor or government house. There's this radar over there, so we will continue to monitor and see how this goes for Ivanivkse. And in this area, and in Heorhiivka, there was artillery shelling of Ukrainian forward operating base or command center allegedly, and that's all from the Bakhmut front. Moving into the Siversk Front, at the Siversk Front, the Russian forces continue to attack at Heorhiivka as well as an attack at Urozhaine. So the Urozhaine is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and there is also footage coming out from Heorhiivka showing the Russians are bombarding Ukrainian positions. That's all from the Siversk Front. Based on history, based on the information that we have been covering, usually nothing much to expect from this front line. And moving into the Kreminna Front, this is Kreminna. The situation continues to be the same, with fighting remaining around the Terny region. There is fighting reported at Terny with Ukrainian forces counterattacking. And one of these counterattack actually was captured on film, where the Ukrainian I believe it's a Bradley fighting vehicle, or it could be some other armored vehicles, firing on Russian position. So actually, if you zoom in a bit more, the Ukrainian armored vehicle go along the tree line, fired at Russian positions around here. So this actually confirms that the Russians are here, but it also confirms that this is actually a gray zone, which is why the Ukrainians' claims is not wrong. So we will continue to monitor this gray zone and see how this progresses. The fact that the Russians are just holding position and allow armored vehicle to do a hit and run does shows limitation on the Russian side in the capability to take out the Ukrainian forces capability to fight. And so moving on, there's nothing over the Zaporizhzhia Front. We move into the Kupyansk Front. This is the Kupyansk city and the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, the Ukrainian forces counterattack at Tabaivka, seemingly capturing half of Tabaivka. Russian forces are attacking at Sinkivka, according to the Ukrainians, but the Russians claim a massive Ukrainian attack over at the Sinkivka train station, at the Liman Lake, and as well as Sinkivka. So this attack over the north seems to be quite serious, given how the Russians are mentioning 3 different locations in a small little area. So that's very interesting. So anyway, this is the situation at the Kupyansk, and that's all, I believe. Yeah, that's all. So this is the summary for the day of 737 for the 1st of March, and I just want to do some conclusions. So the biggest thing, I would say even disappointment, is the premature declaration of capture by the Russian side of Berdyansk, Avdiivka, and Tonenki. These 3 locations continue to be contested with information and the geolocations confirming that the Ukrainian forces are conducting counterattack over at Berdyansk, Avdiivka, and Tonenki. At worst, they are still holding the line against Russian assault, with the Russians are still indeed continuing to attack in this area here, and they are also conducting fire attack on Semenivka, and some of this attack went really badly for the Russians. So, and the Ukrainians are conducting artillery strikes from Novopolsky and Novosibirsk Persha, letting fire on Russian forces that is trying to attack. So the situation is still very, very tense. Ukrainians are indeed doing good at holding this front line right now. The There is a few issues, like I mentioned during the SITREP. The video footage of the Russian forces sending infantry up with an APC, landing them in the village and run away without providing some armored vehicles to provide fire support for this infantry is crazy. That the Ukrainians sent one Bradley and basically wiped out the entire squad or two squads, and that's kind of unbelievable. In today's age of warfare, especially for Ukraine war that has been fought over 2 years, how can this still happen is unimaginable. How can you send infantry up and without anti-tank weapons, without the armored support, fire support, especially we're talking about Russia, which supposedly have more armored vehicles. So that is one hell of a stupid move. And I believe that there are still a lot of commanders on the ground on both sides still doing their job as if it's a computer game and sending people to die. So that is unimaginable. But important thing also to note is that on the grand scale of things, the Ukrainians are conducting massive counterattacks across the entire front line. They are trying to push back over at Boyeda and Novomykhailivka. They are pushing back over at the Avdiivka Front. They are also conducting a major counter actions over at the Sinkivka region, as well as at Tabaivka region. So the Ukrainians are not giving up. They are definitely still able to fight. And the initial assessment that the Ukrainian forces has been routed is now invalidated. The Ukrainians apparently managed to put themselves together and send in reinforcement, especially in this Avdiivka offensive region. The latest information also shows that Sirsky, the new commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, has arrived at the front line. It's unclear where he exists right now or over the front line, but he's definitely doing something to reorganize the Ukrainian troops to hold the defense along this front line. Again, I want to highlight that the Russian forces have dedicated an entire army group, the center group of forces, entirely at the Avdiivka Front. So this is a lot of troops in one area here. So the Russian forces, if with one entire group of army only at this front line unable to push through, then it will be quite a failure. Then the Russian forces will have to go back to the drawing board to decide how to reform their army to make it more effective. They have enormous advantage in terms of ammunition and fire support and airstrike and air superiority, but it seems like they still have severe problems in terms of coordinating them in a way that they can actually fight effectively. Tentatively, if the Russians can't even push through a soft spot, which is getting more and more not soft as the day go by in this area here, if they can't push through, then yeah, the Russians have not really improved that much, to be honest, as compared to maybe 2 years ago. So this is something to note. Ukrainian forces are not pushed over. It is important to remember that the Ukrainians are not pushed over. They are basically also Soviet army, just like the Russians. They are trained under the same doctrine, the same training. Even if they have more corruptions, both countries are still very corrupt. The only difference is a Putin and no Putin. And then now the Ukrainians have additional training from the West, which I think is mostly useless because they don't have the same type of equipment. So otherwise, they are very, very similar in terms of army type. So they and in fact, even as in terms of people, they are the same kind of people, the same type of people, the same ethnicity. Even if they want to claim Ukrainian is a separate ethnic group, they are still Slavic. So this is the important thing to note. So the Ukrainians are holding back. So which means I have more business to do. I can still continue to report, so that's good. But people are still dying, which is not good. So this blood money will continue to flow right now for everyone from the military industrial complex to the news medias and to the YouTubers. So yeah, if they fight, then we just earn the money, no choice. So anyway, so that's the reality. I just have to tell you the truth. So the Russians are, however, on the Ivanivkse region, like I mentioned before at the Bakhmut Front, this battle of Ivanivkse is very weird. Nobody cares about it. Nobody want to talk much about it. But it is rather huge that the Russians are making significant progress in this area here. Half the settlement has been captured already. And there's not much reporting to talk about here. There's also not much geolocation coming out from this area in terms of the assault. I wonder if it's because the commander here is more disciplined. There's a lot more, regimentation to stop the soldiers from getting distracted from their job, and which is why, and also to protect operational secrecy. So we don't see much footages coming out from Ivanivkse except for those drone strikes or air strikes, Lancet strikes. So which probably is not under the command of the ground forces around here. I wonder if that's the case. So the battle continues at Ivanivkse. The Ukrainians, there's basically no information coming out from this area suggesting what the Ukrainians are going to do about it. From my perspective, is the Ukrainians will fall back to the forest region around here, just west of Ivanivkse and the southwest of Ivanivkse, to hold the line if they cannot hold the urban area here. So I think this is pretty much a given. But again, in a grand strategic sense, it's not very meaningful to capture Ivanivkse. It will just be difficult to hold settlement, and the Ukrainians can keep doing incursions through the forest into Ivanivkse, so it will be a pain to hold this ground. So, and from Ivanivkse all the way to Chasiv-Yar and Stupovsky this is Chasiv-Yar, this Stupovsky. It's just going to be very difficult. It's just full of forests, full of difficult terrain, complicated roads, and a lot of buildings. So, for the Russians to attack, in these directions, it's just going to be difficult. It's just going to be still very complicated. So I don't expect too much from the Russians in this direction. I don't believe the Russians want to go for Chasiv-Yar. I don't think it makes a lot of sense, to me at least. So we will continue to monitor and see how this goes. I mean, I do not know what the Russian commanders are thinking. And otherwise, what else do we have to talk about? Ukrainian counterattack over at Kupyansk Front is interesting to me. This concentration of Ukrainian attack at Sinkivka Station, the Liman Lake and Sinkivka seems to be a bit concentrated all in one place. So that's a bit interesting to me. And the Ukrainian forces counterattack at Tabaivka seems to be pretty successful right now. We will continue to monitor and see, how this progress. This is yet another front line. I think it's very complicated to really access strategic meaning into the fighting around here. But we shall see how this goes. I have mentioned a long time ago, Kupyansk Front is a difficult front for the Ukrainians because it is too near to the Russian border. So the Russians can easily send in more troops, reinforcement, resupply down to this area here. And so it's not going to be an easy place. And the prime objective for the Ukrainians previously was Sviatove, but they can't even reach there. They can't even go anywhere close to it. So, yeah, the current objective is just to hold the ground. So, anyway, I think, and also I want to talk about Heorhiivka salient at the Zaporizhzhia Front. The Russian forces seems to have been ejected from Robotyne entirely. The fact that in the Russian in the Ribers report, they mentioned about fighting in the area of Novomykhailivka. Talking about the control of the forest plantation makes zero sense, which means that the fighting is currently in this area here. This is the area that is fighting right now, which means that the Russian forces have been entirely pushed out from the settlement itself, and the Ukrainians are actually chasing them and actually causing fighting to go into this area here in the forest region. So this means that whatever claims or the geolocation that shows the Russians are able to storm through Robotyne, this has not become something permanent, as they are unable to build on their success that push out, totally stranded by the mining by the Ukrainians. Means that the Ukrainians have been successful. They actually succeeded in what they are doing in terms of the defense of Robotyne. So the entire the Zaporizhzhia offensive, or at least the offensive in the Heorhiivka sector by the Russians, have entirely been eliminated right now. So it's unclear what the Russians going to do. Like, no, this reports makes no sense to me from Ryba. Yeah. So if I read through, I let you see. They say that in the area of Robove and Novomykhailivka, the zone of control in the forest plantation have been slightly expanded, and to the west of Robotine, Russians are consolidating their achieved lines. Until now, they are still consolidating their achieved lines. So no, so it sounds like cope to me. Yeah, I feel like they're coping. The entire they should have already captured Robotine by now. So the fact that they didn't shows there is something wrong with the command around here. All the Ukrainians are really, really good around here, and then they are able to successfully defend against this onslaught. So the again, another prediction went down the drain. The prediction that the Heorhiivka sector will collapse within a few days or a week or two seems to be invalidated as well. Ukrainians continue to fight above their weight and above expectations, so that's very good. In the sense that if you are pro-Ukrainians. So anyway, this is the conclusion for the day of 737 for the 1st of March. You can hear that I a bit, the throat is not well because I haven't 100% recovered, and the entire family is now sick. Like, yeah, so don't know what the hell crazy virus is currently spreading around Singapore. So anyway, thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.